The python twisted around the mama dog with terrifying speed, its coils tightening as she struggled desperately to break free. Seconds later, a piercing cry shattered the night, and the unimaginable happened. A furious blur of movement erupted from the shadows, shifting the balance between predator and prey instantly. In the quiet expanse of South Africa's bushveld, Anna and Peter's farm stood as a sanctuary of serenity, yet an undercurrent of the wild's unpredictability always lingered. The couple, along with their German shepherds, Coco and Brutus, led a life many would envy, days filled with the earthy smell of the fields and nights under starlit skies. Brutus, a robust and vigilant protector, had been with them since the beginning, fiercely loyal especially to Peter, who had trained him since he was a pup. One particular evening, as the shadows grew longer and the cool air began to settle, Anna watched from the kitchen window while preparing dinner. The dogs played outside, Brutus with his deep barks and Coco, younger and sprightly, darting around him in playful arcs. Their barks were a comforting soundtrack to the rural life she had come to love, a life far removed from her city upbringing. However, the tranquility of the farm belied the lurking dangers of the wilderness. The vast property bordered areas untamed and wild, where nature ruled supreme and human boundaries were respected only by the law of chance. This evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow that briefly set the sky afire, something else stirred on the edges of their land. Anna called the dogs inside as dusk approached, a routine that marked the end of another day. But tonight, Brutus seemed distracted, his ears perked up and his gaze fixed on the darkening thicket. Coco, sensing his alertness, stood beside him, her body tense. Anna felt a chill as she watched them, their instincts tuned to something she couldn't see or hear. "Peter, the dogs are acting strange," Anna called out, her voice tinged with unease. Peter, who had been fixing a fence post near the barn, wiped the sweat from his brow and looked towards where the dogs were staring. He knew that in the bush, a sudden change in animal behavior often meant that something was amiss. With a reassuring nod to Anna, he decided to investigate. Grabbing a flashlight, Peter approached the edge of the property, the dogs cautiously at his heels. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing little but the dense brush and the night sounds of the bush coming to life. Yet, the dogs' unease was palpable, their bodies rigid with anticipation. As the last light of day faded and the world around them succumbed to the night, the peace of the farm was shattered by a rustling in the underbrush. The sudden noise, startling and close, made Anna gasp. Peter steadied his flashlight, his hand gripping it tighter. The dogs growled low in their throats, their focus sharp on the unseen. It was then, in the eerie quiet that followed the rustle, that they all sensed it. Something was out there, watching, waiting. The tranquility of the farm was merely a facade, and as darkness enveloped them, the real inhabitants of the bushveld began to stir, revealing the precarious balance between the domestic and the wild. The arrival of a new threat loomed, invisible yet palpable, as the night claimed its dominion over the land. As the tension thickened in the cool night air, Peter and the dogs cautiously patrolled the edge of their property. His flashlight's beam sliced through the darkness, revealing little but tangled underbrush and the occasional glint of small, reflective eyes, typical of the nocturnal wildlife. Yet, the atmosphere felt charged, a silent warning that something more sinister lurked in the shadows. The dogs, attuned to the nuances of their homeland, moved with deliberate steps, their noses twitching, sniffing the air for a scent that seemed to draw them further into a stand of dense foliage. Coco, usually less assertive than Brutus, took the lead, her posture alert and ready. Peter noted this unusual behavior with a growing sense of unease. Coco's instincts, he knew, would not mislead them. Suddenly, Brutus let out a sharp bark, his body rigid as he stared at a large dark shape coiled at the base of an acacia tree. Before Peter could react, the shape shifted with a horrifying smoothness, a long, thick body uncoiling in the sparse light. It was a python, massive and imposing, its scales a mosaic of earthy colours that camouflaged it perfectly with the dry leaves and soil of the bush. The sight of the python sent a jolt of adrenaline through Peter. He had encountered snakes on the farm before, but none as formidable as this. The sheer size of it suggested it was capable of taking down large prey, and with the dogs so close, danger was imminent. "Back, Brutus! Coco, come!" he commanded in a low, urgent tone, hoping to retreat slowly without provoking the snake. Coco, however, seemed frozen by the snake's presence, her body tensely poised as if preparing for a confrontation. The python, aware of the new threats, shifted its gaze between Peter and the dogs, its tongue flicking out to taste the air, a sign of its growing agitation. Without warning, the snake struck, launching itself towards Coco with alarming speed. Its body moved with lethal precision, aiming directly at the smaller dog. Coco barely managed to dodge the first strike, scrambling back towards Peter in panic. The python, undeterred, pursued, driven by hunger, or perhaps the intrusion into its territory. The intensity of the moment peaked as Peter, realizing the immediate danger, scooped up a large stick. "Stay behind me!" he shouted to Anna, who had followed him outside, drawn by the commotion. Together, they faced the encroaching threat, Peter brandishing the stick like a weapon, his heart pounding with the primal urge to protect his family and their beloved pets. As the python prepared to strike again, its body coiled with potent energy. The air seemed to thicken with suspense. Coco, now behind Peter, trembled, her eyes wide with fear. The standoff between man and snake underscored a brutal truth of the wilderness. At any moment, the line between life and death could be as thin as a serpent's strike. The python, momentarily repelled by Peter's aggressive defense, retreated slightly, its gaze never wavering from its intended prey. This brief respite allowed Peter to edge back, urging Coco and Brutus to do the same. Coco, however, displayed a sudden burst of protective instinct. Her body language changed from fear to a determined guard stance as she positioned herself between the looming threat and the path leading back to the house where her puppies awaited, innocently unaware of the danger outside. Despite Peter's commands for her to retreat, Coco's maternal instincts were overpowering. She barked sharply, a clear challenge to the massive intruder that had violated the safety of their home. The python, sizing up Coco as its target, shifted its focus, recognizing the immediate threat she posed. Its movements were slow and deliberate, a terrifying dance of death as it prepared to strike once more. Coco's courage was palpable, her every bark filled with defiance. But as she held her ground, the python advanced with astonishing speed, its body launching forward like a coiled spring released. Coco dodged the first strike, then the second, her agility her only advantage against the snake's deadly precision. Peter, heart in his throat, tried to intervene, swinging his makeshift weapon with desperate energy, but the chaos of the moment made it difficult to land a decisive blow without risking harm to Coco. The struggle intensified, with Coco narrowly escaping the python's grasp time and again. Each close call left her more determined, yet visibly tiring, her movements becoming less sharp as the ordeal wore on. The night air was thick with the scent of dust and fear, punctuated by Coco's frantic barks and the sinister hiss of the python. In a heart-stopping moment, the python managed to outmaneuver Coco's fading agility. With a swift, powerful motion, it struck her flank and coiled around her before she could escape. The weight of the python was immense, its strength evident as it began to constrict, preparing to squeeze life away from the brave dog. Coco's yelps of distress cut through the night, reaching the ears of Anna, who had been watching helplessly from a safe distance. "Peter, do something!" she screamed, her voice a mix of fear and desperation. Peter, driven by a surge of adrenaline, redoubled his efforts, striking the python with renewed fury. As the chapter closes, Coco is caught in the deadly embrace of the python, her fate uncertain. The struggle has reached a critical point, with her life hanging in the balance and her family watching in horror, powerless against the primal force of nature they are now confronting. In the gripping silence that followed Coco's desperate cries, Peter and Anna found themselves caught in a desperate race against time. The python's body was a tightening vice around Coco, each coil a death sentence drawing tighter with horrifying inevitability. Peter, driven by a mixture of fear and determination, swung the stick with all his might, aiming for the snake's head, hoping to distract it enough to loosen its deadly grip. Anna, usually more reserved, was overtaken by a wave of adrenaline. Ignoring her own safety, she grabbed a nearby shovel and joined Peter in the fray. The couple worked in frantic tandem, striking at the python, which hissed and recoiled under the assault, but did not release its hold on Coco. Each hit seemed only to momentarily stun the creature, which was single-minded in its intent to subdue its catch. "Keep hitting it!" Peter shouted over Coco's laboured breathing. His voice was raw, edged with panic. He had never felt so helpless, so furious. The python, resilient and seemingly impervious to pain, adjusted its coils, tightening even as it faced the onslaught from the desperate owners. Anna's strikes grew more frantic, her fear for Coco translating into fierce determination. She understood the stakes. They were not just fighting to save a pet, but a member of their family, a loyal companion who had brought joy and love into their lives. The emotional weight of the moment bore down on her, tears streaking her face as she fought. Coco's whimpers grew weaker, the sound tearing at Anna's heart. The dog's eyes met hers, filled with pain, yet trusting, spurring Anna to greater efforts. "Hang on, Coco!" she cried, her voice a mix of command and plea. The battle seemed endless, every second stretching out as they struggled to free Coco from the python's unyielding embrace. The turning point came when Peter, with a particularly forceful swing, managed to hit the python near its head. The snake shuddered, its grip loosening slightly as it recoiled from the impact. Seizing the moment, Peter yelled, "Now, Anna, pull Coco away!" Together, they pulled at Coco's hind legs, leveraging all their strength against the snake's slackening hold. The effort was Herculean, muscles straining, breaths coming in ragged gasps. Slowly, inch by inch, Coco was dragged from the tightening death loop, her body limp and barely responsive. Finally, with one last concerted effort, Coco was freed. The python, disoriented and likely injured, slithered away into the darkness, leaving behind a scene of exhaustion and relief. Coco lay on the ground, breathing heavily, her sides heaving. Peter and Anna collapsed beside her, their bodies shaking with adrenaline and shock. As they gathered themselves, Peter gently stroked Coco's head, checking her for injuries. Her breathing was laboured, and it was clear she was not out of danger yet. The physical wounds were visible, but the internal damage from the constriction was unknown. They needed to get her to a vet immediately, but for a moment they simply took solace in the fact that she was alive, her life spared by their desperate intervention. The chapter closes with Coco alive, but in a precarious condition, her survival hanging in the balance as her human family surrounds her, their bond strengthened by the night's harrowing events, but shadowed by uncertainty about what the morning might bring. Coco lay on the soft blanket Anna had spread out on the living room floor, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. The trip to the vet earlier had been tense, each passing second filled with worry. Peter drove while Anna sat in the back with Coco, whispering words of comfort and stroking her head. The vet had worked quickly, scanning for broken bones and internal injuries. Miraculously, Coco had escaped with a few broken ribs and deep bruises, but no life-threatening damage. The doctor warned, however, that her recovery would require rest, close monitoring, and a great deal of care. Back at the farm, Peter and Anna dedicated themselves to Coco's recovery. Peter constructed a temporary pen in the corner of the living room to keep her comfortable and limit her movements, while Anna fussed over her like a worried parent. Brutus, sensing the fragility of his companion, lay nearby, his presence quiet and reassuring. The puppies, too young to understand the ordeal, played clumsily in their corner, their innocence a balm to the tension that still hung in the air. "She's been through so much," Anna murmured one evening, watching Coco carefully from the couch. "I don't know how she managed to survive. She's so strong, Peter." Peter, seated beside her, nodded, his gaze on Coco as well. "She fought for them," he said softly, gesturing to the puppies. "That instinct, it's something else. She wasn't going to give up on them." Days turned into weeks, and under Anna and Peter's watchful care, Coco began to recover. Her strength returned little by little, though she remained protective of her puppies, often nudging them closer to her with her nose as if to reassure herself of their safety. It was during one of these quiet evenings that Anna noticed something unusual. "Peter," she called out, her voice tinged with curiosity. "Come here for a moment." He walked over to find Anna gently pressing her hand to Coco's abdomen. "Feel this," she urged, guiding his hand. Beneath his palm, there was a faint movement, a stirring that was unmistakable. Peter's eyes widened. "Is she?" he began, his voice trailing off. Anna nodded, her expression a mixture of disbelief and wonder. "She's pregnant." The realization hit them like a wave, a bittersweet moment that brought tears to Anna's eyes. "Brutus," she whispered, her voice breaking. "These are his puppies." The discovery of Coco's pregnancy filled the household with a renewed sense of purpose and anticipation. They adjusted their routines to ensure Coco was as comfortable as possible, consulting the vet frequently and preparing for the arrival of the new puppies. It was as if a small part of Brutus was returning to them, a gift born from loss. One quiet night, just as they thought they had a few more days before the birth, Anna heard a soft whimper from Coco's pen. Rushing over, she found Coco panting heavily, a tiny, wet bundle already nestled beside her. "Peter!" she called urgently, her voice filled with both excitement and concern. By the time Peter joined her, Coco had delivered 2 more puppies, her body trembling with the effort. The couple worked quickly to ensure the newborns were safe, marveling at the sight of the tiny lives. But as they settled in, a lingering question loomed in their minds. Could they keep them all safe in a world that had already proven so dangerous? The first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, bathing the farm in a soft golden light. The house was alive with the sounds of tiny paws skittering across the floor and playful yips echoing through the rooms. The new puppies, now a few weeks old, had grown stronger and more adventurous, their boundless energy filling every corner of the home. Coco watched over them with a quiet resolve, her recovery remarkable, but her maternal instincts even stronger. She was never far from their side, her presence a comforting constant. Peter stood by the window, sipping his coffee as he watched the farm stir to life. Outside, Brutus patrolled the perimeter, ever watchful, his imposing figure casting long shadows in the morning light. "They're going to be a handful," Peter said with a smile, turning to Anna, who was trying to wrangle 2 of the more mischievous puppies away from a basket of laundry. "They already are," Anna replied, laughing as one pup tumbled into the pile of clothes. "But it's worth it, every bit of it." She glanced at Coco, who lay in the corner with her youngest pup, her eyes half closed, but her ears alert to every sound. The farm itself had changed too. Peter had fortified the fences and cleared the nearby brush, ensuring no unwelcome visitors could find their way too close. The python, once a symbol of terror, was now a distant memory, safely relocated to a sanctuary far from the farm. Yet, the family knew that life in the bush always carried risks. It was a balance they had come to accept, respecting the wild, even as they sought to protect their own. As the weeks turned into months, the puppies grew quickly, their playful antics bringing joy to the household. Peter spent his afternoons training them, just as he had trained Brutus, while Anna ensured their days were filled with warmth and care. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Anna and Peter sat together on the porch, watching the dogs play in the yard. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers from the nearby fields. The puppies darted around Coco, who lay calmly in the grass, her gaze steady and peaceful. "You know," Anna began, her voice soft, "it's like a part of Brutus is still here, living on through them." As the puppies tumbled over each other in the fading light, the farm seemed to exhale, settling into a calm it hadn't known in months. The wildness of the bush still loomed on the edges, but within the safety of the family's bond, peace reigned, for now. It was a fragile peace, but it was enough. Coco's bravery and the love of her family turned a moment of despair into a story of resilience and hope. From the depths of danger, she emerged stronger, protecting her puppies and proving the unbreakable bond between a dog and her family. What would you have done if you were in Anna and Peter's place? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. Your support helps us share these heartwarming tales with the world.